So, I don't know if you noticed, but this film is called Treasure Island.
Mm-hmm. I did pick up on that.
When do they get to the island?
I don't know if you noticed. This film is called Treasure Island.
That was a separate thought.
That's the most insight Mike has ever brought to the show.
No.
All right, continue, Mike. I'm sorry. On this very special episode of the MacGuffin Guild, we're going to climb aboard the Hispaniola and set sail with Long John Silver and Jim Hawkins in Treasure Island. This classic 1950 family adventure stars Robert Newton, Bobby Driscoll, Basil Sidney, Walter Fitzgerald, and Denis O'Day. Directed by Byron Haskin. We're going to discuss International Talk Like a Pirate Day, the works and major impact of Byron Haskin, violence in Disney movies, Blind Frankenstein, and Robert Newton's insane pop culture influence. We'll dig into the tragedy of Bobby Driscoll, the Misfits, Tina Fey's niece, getting a hearse towed from New York City, comparing punk rockers to pirates, and Muppet Penis Jokes. We'll also get into Justin's favorite pirate movies. We'll spend some time with our good friend Fatt Matt, as well as the world premiere of one of his short stories inspired by this film. I'm Pat Doherty, and as always, I'll be joined by my fellow MacGuffins, Justin Jones and Mike Antonio. Our theme song was written and performed by Jordan Vincent. Come with us on a swashbuckling adventure in Treasure Island.
I raised you better than this.
And welcome to another episode of the MacGuffin Guild. I am Pat Doherty, and as you all know, a MacGuffin is a plot device used to drive along a story, and we here on the Guild like to use a film as a MacGuffin to drive along our conversation. As always, with me, first and foremost, I have Justin Jones. Justin, how's it going?
It's going all right, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm ready to talk about that booty.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
That was good.
I don't know. I tried to clear my mind, and I was like, don't say anything dumb about pirates. Didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah.
All right, well, speaking of asses, Mike Antonio, how is it?
How are yous guys? That's I've adopted a new personality. I'm a wise guy now.
You sound like one of those Muppet rats.
All right, you got me. You pinpointed it. That's what I was really going for.
You're good, though. I know you're dealing with some stuff at home.
Well, not
with your air conditioner unit.
I'm not going through a divorce or anything.
I guess I did make that sound pretty intense.
I got some personal issues going on. Some family tragedies.
Let's talk about those for the next hour and a half.
No, just normal homeowner bullshit. Replacing major equipment. Is that what you call that, equipment?
That's
Yeah.
actually a pretty valid question.
Yeah, what is it?
An appliance? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
He's got a Muppet rat infestation.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does. All right, so Treasure Island, 1950. That is our film for today. But I couldn't dare move along any further until I let everyone know that this is going to be an extra special episode. First, myself, Justin, and Mike are going to discuss this film in depth, as we normally would on an episode, and give some extra context to anyone who may not have seen the film but is listening anyway. But then, the extra special part is we are going to have a good friend of ours named Fatt Matt. He's going to join us, and we got something really special involving him coming up later. So you're not going to want to miss an ounce of this episode. So let's get to it. So this film was directed by Byron Haskin, and let's see what else he has done here.
Not to be confused with Bob Hoskins.
Yeah, no, certainly not him.
Or Baskin Robbins.
Or Baskin Robbins. Oh, God, I hope he directed 31 films.
39, close.
39, so close.
Oh, man. If only he didn't die sooner.
Oh, that sucks.
That's really terrible.
Oh, my God.
Holy shit. Oh, it's going to be one of those episodes, isn't it?
Oh, jeez. All right, so anyway, some of his films, he did War of the Worlds, 1953.
Oh, shit. I love that movie.
Directed. He did...
I'm a big fan of that one.
Man, let's go way back. 1927, Matinee Ladies.
I've never heard of that one.
Well, he did 4 films in 1927, and then he had a little break from directing, apparently, until 1943, where he picked back up again. Too Late for Tears, Treasure Island, Tarzan's Peril, Warpath, Silver City, Denver and Rio Grande, The War of the Worlds. Yeah, anyway. Oh, and then he also did Long John Silver in 1954. So there's a little I want to get into with that.
Okay.
Byron Haskin also actually did special effects, more special effects credits than directing credits. So he's one of those...
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, he's one of those
Yeah.
Renaissance men.
Yeah, double threat.
Kind of like you, Justin.
Me? What's my double threat?
You're a Renaissance man.
Oh, yeah.
You're no threat.
I'm no threat. The word threat has never been used to describe me. Yeah.
Hey, and get this. He's a triple threat, 34 cinematographer credits.
Oh.
But here's his mini bio via IMDb. After graduation from the University of California at Berkeley, Byron Haskin worked for a time as a newspaper cartoonist. He began his career in the film industry in 1920 as a commercial industrial movie photographer and then as a cameraman. Later, he became an assistant director. He was a cinematographer during the silent era, worked on special effects, and helped to develop the technology that eventually brought sound to the film industry.
Oh, damn.
He began directing in the late 1920s at Warner Brothers and journeyed to England in the early 1930s to make films there. Upon his return, he was appointed head of Warner Brothers Special Effects. He returned to directing and was responsible for Walt Disney's first live-action film, Treasure Island, which is what we're going to talk about today. So, yeah, sounds like Byron's pretty legit.
Yeah, he was a film pioneer.
So he directed it based on the Robert Louis Stevenson book, which I believe was originally called The Sea Cook, A Story for Boys. Are you familiar with that?
No, I am not. I just know the book was originally from 1883, I believe.
Oh, okay. All right. But before we get any further, Mike, let's first dig into a spoiler-ravaged synopsis. Enchanted by the idea of locating treasure buried by Captain Flint, Squire Trelawney, Dr. Livesley, and Jim Hawkins charter a sailing voyage to a Caribbean island. Unfortunately, a large number of Flint's old pirate crew are aboard this ship, including Long John Silver. Arr. I don't know about you guys, but Robert Newton was freaking awesome in this movie.
Yeah.
As Long John Silver. I mean, like, legit awesome.
I really liked everyone in it. I thought everyone did a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, Bobby Driscoll felt a little weird, but, like... And this is something strange, too, because I think, in the original story, Sarah and I were talking about this, Jim Hawkins is actually a teenager.
Okay.
So it's interesting they pick someone who's a younger character, because I feel like Hollywood is notorious for doing the exact opposite and having someone who's younger and then change the character to be someone older, like Dune, which comes up all the time with this. I think he's supposed to be like 14 or something in the book. I can't remember, but like
15,
in
I
the
think.
David Lynch one. Yeah, 15. The David Lynch one, he's
20s.
Kyle MacLachlan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I think there was some, around the time that it came out, I read somewhere that some critics thought Bobby Driscoll, who we'll talk about him a little bit, they felt he was out of place. Apparently he was the only American amongst a bunch of Englishmen.
That totally stands out. Yeah, he's speaking with an American accent. Everybody else speaks with an English accent.
Even back then, I guess critics were like, he feels a little out of place there. But I guess he was Disney's sweetheart back then. But Bobby Driscoll's story is a tragic one. At least turns out to be a tragic one.
Why don't you tell us? I know nothing.
You know nothing? Well, let's do this. Let's spend a little time. I want to get into our personal histories with this. And we do have something a little different with this episode, a little special lined up for later on. There is a reason that we kind of went down this path. I know Treasure Island from 1950 might seem a little outside the MacGuffin Guild's pepper shed, but we're here now, and there's a reason for that, which will be revealed as we
Which,
go
to be
along.
fair, that's what we like to do, is step outside the pepper shed. So
Absolutely. I love that. I love that another, just any excuse to watch something you normally don't think you'd be watching in that moment in time is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So Bobby Driscoll, let's talk about him and Robert Newton a little bit before we get into our own personal stories. That work for you guys?
What about reviews?
We'll get to them in a second because there's something interesting there I want to point out.
Okay.
But I just want to talk about the main two real quick because I'm really intrigued by one of their stories and then the other one's performance I thought was noteworthy. So Bobby Driscoll was, he was born in 1937, and this was 1950. So he was 13 when this film came out, but he was probably 12 while they were filming it. And apparently, Bobby Driscoll was, this is via IMDb, Bobby Driscoll was a natural-born actor discovered by chance at the age of 5.5 in a barbershop in California. His career spanned for 17 years, 1943 to 1960, which included such notable movie screen appearances as The Fighting Sullivans in 1944, Song of the South in 1946, which was a Disney film, So Dear to My Heart 1948, and The Window 1949, which was not only the sleeper of 1949, but even earned him an Academy Award in 1950 as the Outstanding Juvenile Actor in 1949.
Wow.
For his role as Jim Hawkins in Walt Disney's Treasure Island, he eventually received his Hollywood star on 1560 Vine Street, and in 1954 he was chosen in a nationwide poll for a Milky Way Gold Star for his work on TV and radio.
Well, damn.
I don't know what a Milky Way Gold Star is, but that sounds official.
I want one, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Does sound good.
So, all the more tragic then was his fruitless struggle to find a place in a pitiless adolescent world after severe acne had stalled his acting career at 16. When his face was no longer charming and his voice not smooth enough to be used for voiceover jobs, his last big movie hit was the voice of animated Peter Pan in 1953, for which he was also the live-action model, which if you look at him and you envision Peter Pan from Walt Disney, it does have the same look.
Well, it's funny. I was looking at him. I was like, "Where do I know this kid from?" And it was like driving me nuts. And then when Sarah read the thing about him being Peter Pan, I was like, "Oh yeah." Oddly enough, I think that's where I know him from.
Yeah, that's weird. I know, man. When his contract with the Disney Studios was prematurely terminated shortly after the release of Peter Pan in late March 1953, all of a sudden his former stardom became more burden than advantage. He successfully continued acting on TV until 1957 and even managed to get 2 final screen roles in The Scarlet Coat and opposite Mark Damon and Connie Stevens in Party Crashers. His life became more and more a roller coaster ride that included several encounters with the law and his eventual sentencing as a drug addict in October 1961. Released in early 1962, rehabilitated and eager to make a comeback, Bobby was ignored by the very industry that once had raised and nurtured him because of his record as a convict and former drug addict. First famous and now infamous, and hoping to revive his career after his parole had expired in 1964. He eventually traveled to New York only to learn that his reputation had preceded him, and no one wanted to hire him either. After a final appearance in Piero Hellitzer's underground short Dirt in 1965 and a short art period at Andy Warhol's so-called Factory, he disappeared into the underground, thoroughly dispirited and funds depleted. On March 30th, 1968, 2 playing children found his dead body in an abandoned East Village tenement. Believed to be an unclaimed and homeless person, he was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave on Hart Island, where he remains. So that took a damn tragic turn.
No, I mean, that just sucks. Like, what a tragedy, because he was like the Hollywood golden boy at the time. Well, the Disney golden boy at the time. Which, I mean, you've heard that story a million times. You know, that these child actors, man, not too many of them make it through.
Yeah.
And he did a good job for being, 12? I mean, dude.
He's a kid with all these British actors.
Yeah. I mean, that's
He's
tough.
trying to outact British actors? Pfft, good luck, buddy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right, so Robert Newton, who played Long John Silver, he was one of the great character actors and great characters of the British cinema. Best remembered today for playing Long John Silver in Treasure Island and its sequel in 1954. His portrayal of Long John Silver and of Blackbeard the Pirate in 1952 created a persona that was so indelible that his vocal intonations created the paradigm for scores of people who want to talk like a pirate, quote unquote.
So it's all because of him?
Apparently. At least he's credited with that.
Which is funny because I was thinking to myself while watching the movie when they meet him early on and he's the cook or whatever. And I was like, don't these guys realize he's a pirate from the way he's talking?
Yeah.
There you go. He created that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's got a parrot. He's missing a leg.
Missing
A peg leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I guess he created all those, those tropes of a pirate.
Yeah.
That's funny.
You know what revelation I had while watching that part was when they picked him up as a cook. I was like, oh my God, all those Long John Silver like fast food fish restaurant places make sense now.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, because he was a cook for that period of time.
I want to tie this into something else that I recently experienced. I recently traveled up to Salem with my wife and daughter, and when we were up there, we went to one of the witch museums up there, and they talked about the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. And one of the things they mentioned was that because The Wizard of Oz was one of, if not the first color film,
Yes.
it was decided based on a production decision that they wanted to make the witch green so they could really show off that Technicolor beauty. And because they made that decision, because that film studio made that decision, it forever changed how the traditional witch is portrayed now. You see a lot of witches, general Halloween decorations, green witches with the big pointy noses.
Right.
Same with this situation with the voice that Robert Newton came up with to portray this pirate is now the way people portray pirates. Again, the influence of Hollywood on pop culture.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me when you take a simple thing like a witch and a pirate, how it was literally film performances and film decisions that forever altered the way that we view these things.
Yeah.
It's just two prime examples, which I think is great.
Cool. Yeah.
It's funny that you should mention that because I was just listening to Gilbert Gottfried's podcast. He had Rick Baker and David Scull on there, and they were talking about how, like, Frankenstein's monster, I guess, I can't remember which one it was, which Frankenstein movie it was, but they wanted to make Frankenstein blind, but, like, he could talk and everything, so that's where the hands coming out thing came from.
Nice.
But then they decided in post-production or whatever, I guess they decided, like, nah, this isn't going to work, so they cut all his dialogue and then made him not blind. So now he's just walking around with hands like it's for no fucking reason. Yeah. But like everybody remembers Frankenstein walking around with his hands out, and it's because of that one thing from Frankenstein. Like he's just always now like everyone
That's
pictures
so
that.
funny. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I didn't realize upon viewing of this film until I researched it a little more exactly how influential Robert Newton's portrayal of this character was in pop culture as a whole. I thought that was amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so just one more tidbit about it. Often credited with originating the style of speech generally equated with pirates. After his spectacular turn as Long John Silver in the Disney version of Treasure Island, actors playing pirates in film, radio, television, and theater all tended to use and still use the same pseudo-Cornish accent Newton came up with.
Crazy.
Pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Isn't there like National Talk Like a Pirate Day or something?
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I've had customers come in, like I didn't even know about it at first. This was years ago. The customer came in and was talking like that. I'm like, okay. And like her husband was like, yeah, it's National Talk Like a Pirate Day. I was like, oh, okay.
So that is September 19th, by the way, is International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Okay.
September 19th, so mark your calendars.
Mark ye calendars.
Mark it with a black spot.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Shall we swing on over to Rotten Tomatoes?
Yarp.
Rotten Tomatoes, Treasure Island, 1950. 7 reviews from critics. Would you guys care to guess where this falls on the tomato meter or thermometer, whatever the correct pronunciation is? Do you guys want to guess where this falls on the scale?
I just want to say there's been almost 70 goddamn years and there's 7 reviews.
I got 7 here, yeah.
Jesus.
Well, I feel like by the time the internet was invented, a lot of people forgot about Treasure Island.
Okay,
yeah, that's
fair
valid.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right, Justin, based on 7 reviews, what do you think Treasure Island has on the tomato meter?
I'm going to have to say critic reviews are going to be high because I'm going to say this is already a well-regarded movie and that none of them will look like hayseeds. So I'm going to say upwards of 84.
Okay. Mike?
I think you're in the right general area, Justin. You said 84. I'm going to say 87.
Okay.
I thought I went too high.
This is a first. This is a first on the MacGuffin Guild. You guys ready for this?
Somebody got it on the nose, didn't they?
No.
Oh. It's a complete opposite, isn't it?
On the tomato meter, based on 7 reviews, Treasure Island from 1950 scores a 100%.
What the fuck?
Wow.
100% on the tomato
That's
meter.
crazy.
Wow.
Listen to that fanfare.
Audience score then. Where do you guys think? This is based on 5,000 plus audience ratings.
I'm going to say 75.
Okay. Mike?
I'm going to stick with the 87.
67%.
Wow. I'm actually surprised.
All right, so let me just rattle off a few critic reviews. Now, I'm sure you can imagine, based on 100% critic rating, I don't have a single negative from a critic to read. So I'll just read off a couple of these positives, and then we can get to some audience ratings for the negatives. So Clyde Gilmore from Maclean's Magazine says, Robert Louis Stevenson's classic tale of pirates offers thrills for youngsters and nostalgic chuckles for their elders.
Yeah, see, that's why I thought the audience scores would be higher. That's exactly why I thought they would be.
One thing I found interesting about this is like a Disney movie, rated G, and like at 2 separate times in this movie, someone got shot directly in the face.
I
Like,
know.
Oh, that
It wasn't even like
Yeah.
like it's not even like someone got shot and I was like, Wilhelm screaming, they fall over.
Yeah.
Like someone twice got shot in the face and blood came out of their face.
That
And
was
he fell over and died.
Something I was going to point out
Yeah.
was the violence in this film with the shootings and the stabbings. It's
Oh yeah, one guy gets the rifle, pulls him forward, and then they stab him directly into the chest. A fucking kid gets knifed. How would you say that? Stabbed in the arm
Knifed.
and is bleeding all over the place. Yeah, knifed. Thanks.
the captain gets shot in the chest or like
Yeah, he gets shot in the
shoulder
chest.
or whatever.
Spoilers.
Yeah, but does he live or die? We don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, point being, this movie's pretty violent.
Yeah, it's exceptionally violent.
This is via commonsensemedia.org. All right. Treasure Island, 1950. Violence and scariness. Shootings. One in painful close-up right into a pirate's face. Stabbings,
go.
including the boy hero getting a knife thrown into his arm.
100%.
Drinking among the seamen. One so drunk he washes overboard. His inebriation encouraged by Long John Silver as a deliberate act of murder. Ex-pirate Billy Bones quite likely dies of alcoholism. At least it's not glorified.
He died of shock or rum. What a diagnosis! Like what a
Yeah. Well, it was different times back then, I suppose.
That's before modern medicine. Yeah.
Great. All right, so Virginia Graham from The Spectator. Mr. Walt Disney's first British picture, Treasure Island, can be voted a tremendous success. John J. Puscio.
Oh boy.
I thought for sure you were going to say Jingleheimer Schmidt.
John J. Jingleheimer Schmidt. From movie Metropolis. While the movie seems shorter every time I watch it at 96 minutes and leaves out a lot of Stevenson's detail, its cheerful sense of excitement carries the day. And John Beefus from from Commercial. What?
Beefus?
Yeah. Beifus. How else would you say that? Beufus? Beifus?
How's it spelled again?
Beifuss. John Beefus from Commercial Appeal Newton's Long John Silver is the ultimate buccaneer, a one-legged, squinty-eyed blackguard, so piratical he even concludes a prayer with a hammy "Amen."
Yeah.
Great.
Anyway,
That might be a good opportunity for a soundbite dropped in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps. That's pretty much the bulk of the positives I have here, but let me see if I can find a couple negatives from audience reviews. So let's start with this one. Robert H. says, and this review is from December 2020. Robert Newton was funny as Long John Silver. It was more boring than I expected. Maybe if I had seen it as a kid, it would hold some nostalgia.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I agree with that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I don't. Well, we grew up in an era where we had like Pirates of the Caribbean level of explosions and action and stuff. And
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like for this being the first live action Disney movie, and you have like full size pirate ships and islands and those huge, beautiful matte painting backgrounds.
Yes.
I think even if the action was slow, there was a lot of eye candy in it. You know what I mean? There's always something interesting to look at.
Now, here we go. Kenneth E. Now, this would start some arguments. Kenneth E. says, still Disney's best pirate movie.
Oh.
Yeah. Greg W. gives this 1.5 stars out of 5. He says, skip this and see the MGM version. Ooh. In your face.
Is the MGM version, is that the one that came out in like the 90s or something? Or what was the
Let's
MGM?
see.
Or was that the earlier one from the 30s?
It was
I don't
probably the earlier one. Let me see here. Oh yeah, that's it. The 1934 version is the MGM version. You know, I'd be real curious to go back now and at least watch a trailer or something of the 1934 version to see how Wallace Beery portrays Long John Silver. I'd be curious to see that.
Yeah, I would love to see other versions because I mean I like the story and I think it's really interesting, and I'd like to see a version that's not all Disneyed up, which I don't mean as a slight to him, but like something a little more gritty, where maybe 3 or 4 people get shot directly in the face. I don't know.
Matt H. says, I know that everyone likes this, but it wasn't all that great.
Well, thank you for the insight. Does he elaborate on that, or?
No, that's it. That's all he says, which I wouldn't even waste the time logging into my Rotten Tomatoes account to write that out.
Yeah, that's...
The people need to know the truth.
Matthew S. says, a pretty bland adaptation of the book. They skipped a lot of the setup, jumped from plot point to plot point, and left out most of Stevenson's characterization and atmosphere. The acting, especially on the part of the main character, Jim Hawkins, who also looked way too feminine for the role. That's mean. He's 12.
What the fuck?
Was mediocre at best. The only performance that stood out was Robert Newton's Long John Silver, which was as piratey as it gets.
I think that's probably the most well thought out negative review because I don't think he was necessarily wrong with stuff he said, because I didn't read the book, but I know it's a movie, so they probably cut out a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And I kind of, at one point, I'd be lying if the thought didn't cross my mind that Jim Hawkins did kind of look like a girl at points.
See, that
Did
never
you
crossed
write
my
that?
mind.
Hold on, let me go back. Does that say JJ, perhaps?
We don't have to look to see who wrote it. We just need to know that it's brilliant.
Oh, yeah. So this was my selection, and it will all make sense momentarily how we got here, how the Guild got to this point, and how we picked 1950s Treasure Island. I did not have a history with this film. I had never seen it all the way through. I do have very distinct memories as a youth watching the Swiss Family Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
I knew you were going to mention that, yeah.
I have distinct, clear memories of watching that film. I had seen that multiple times when I was young. I loved that movie.
Actually, me too, Pat.
As a kid. Yeah. So that's probably the closest comparison I have to kind of that era of filmmaking and that style of adventure film.
Sure.
But as far as Treasure Island goes, no history at all to speak of. So I didn't know if you guys had any history with that, or are you in a similar boat, no pun intended?
Hey!
Yeah, I had never seen this before. And this is kind of like in an era that I'm not really too familiar with. I started looking around, like poking around. I was like, yeah, I'm not really too familiar with a lot of the work of these people. But yeah, it was pretty cool because I was not really in the mood to watch it, but I knew I had to watch it because I had like other stuff in mind I wanted to watch. And it actually quickly pulled me into being excited about watching it. So.
Oh, cool.
Nice. Mike, you didn't have anything to add, did you? Right? You didn't see it before?
No, I had never seen it, which is, to my knowledge, I've never seen any version, including the Muppets version. To my knowledge, unless I was like really young, but I don't remember anything. And I've never read the book, which now I kind of want to read the book. I want to seek that out. I'm sure it's easy to find.
Yeah, I want to read it too. I was thinking the same thing.
All right, so anybody have any notes before I knock out a couple quick Pat's points before we transition to the very special edition portion of this episode?
One thing that's really interesting is if you're into Treasure Island, there's N.C. Wyeth in 1911, I guess, has a series of paintings he did based on Treasure Island, which are awesome. And, you know, N.C. Wyeth is a local artist here in the area. And I feel like I saw one of these at the Brandywine River Museum, but I couldn't be making up in my head. Because I remember seeing some of these, because Sarah was actually, as we were watching the movie, was bringing up the paintings of the parts.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was really interesting watching the movie and then also looking at the illustration. The paintings are amazing, in my opinion. So
That's cool.
So so check that out. That's something to check out. Also, I was gonna say, I'm like I said, I'm not really super into pirate movies, but as I started thinking about pirate movies, is there any like standout pirate movies you guys can think of that you really like?
There's actually an argument to be made about whether or not The Princess Bride is a pirate movie.
Ooh.
Yeah,
And Goonies.
Yeah?
If so, those two would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, I would put them because I would like my list.
They're pirate adjacent.
This is gonna pirate adjacent counts because my list includes. This is my top 3. This is how much I like pirate movies. This is my
this will
top
be good.
3. Ice Pirates.
Never saw it.
Have you ever seen that? Oh, you never seen Ice Pirates? Oh, I loved it. That was on TV like all the time when I was a kid, and I watched it every single time. I loved it. Yeah, so we got Ice Pirates, Captain Ron.
Oh, yeah.
And the only similarity I'm going to draw with this and Captain Ron is it had another one of Disney's young sweethearts in it.
Kurt Russell.
And the third is not a whole movie, but the video pirates segment of Amazon Women on the Moon.
I'm
so scared.
I mean, I like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Not gonna lie, they're fun.
No, I like them too. I think they're fun.
All right. Any other final thoughts, Justin? You got points?
Nah, that's it, man.
Okay. So I got some Pat's points. So, Justin, if you want to set me up.
Pat's points.
Nice.
Good job.
All right. So I'm going to rattle these off quickly. Old school sets and matte background. I definitely like that. I love that old school stuff. That when you could tell they built this extravagant set in a studio. Like you can always tell when they're indoors and they're supposed to be outdoors.
But it doesn't matter. Yeah. It's so much detail and so much work goes into the paintings, the matte paintings and all that. It's amazing.
Yeah, everything.
There was a part when they're in the inn at the beginning, and I couldn't really tell if they were in a smaller room with a matte painting making it look bigger, or if the room was that big. There's like a part where there's like a part of the room that kind of sticks out.
Like opens up.
And I was looking, I was like, I think that's a matte painting making it look 3-dimensional and larger, but I couldn't tell one way or the other, so I thought it was pretty good.
Hey.
Well, that's great. Captain Bones had definitely been through some shit for sure.
Yeah,
You could tell he was.
He had some PTSD going on.
I mean, he literally drank himself to death.
His character was 36 years old.
Pretty much. The character of Blind Pew, who was played by John Laurie. I think there was a little history there with him. I don't know. For the minute and a half that character is on screen, I liked that character. I wish I could have seen more of him.
Yeah, John Laurie is a really interesting looking guy too. I was like really drawn in by his appearance.
He's got 166 acting credits. So he's clearly been around the block.
You know who he kind of reminds me of a little bit when you look at him in the face? He kind of reminds me of Garrett Graham.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
For sure.
He's like a more jaunt-looking Garrett Graham.
Yeah. But anyway, I liked that character in the very short time that I got to see him. So
all the little minor characters in here were super, like, which is not, the movie, it's the story itself, which is really cool. Like Black Dog, Blind Willie, Wonder Eye, whatever his name is.
Blind Pew.
You know what I mean? Like all these little characters that only have a few lines just have such an impact on the story, I think. It's like really interesting. Like I love these ensemble cast type things, even if they only have like I just love characters. I love everybody, like each person feels like they have a role or like some story behind them.
I'm with you, Justin. I really appreciated how quickly they were able to build a history with these characters in a matter of seconds, really. Yeah. Like you'd have a character enter the room, say a couple lines, and you can tell. I mean, you had Black Dog, who had that massive scar across his face, and he's looking for Billy Bones, and very little is said in that exchange, but it builds such a vast storyline in your mind.
Yeah, as soon as he walks in, before he says anything, you already have questions. You know what I mean? You're like, where'd the scar come from? Why is he weird?
Yep.
Like, it's all this stuff,
Yep.
I learned about the black spot, which I thought was really interesting. So the black spot is a literary device invented by Robert Louis Stevenson for his novel Treasure Island. In the book, pirates are presented with a black spot to officially pronounce a verdict of guilt or judgment. It consists of a piece of paper. One side bears a circular black mark, and the other side bears a message placed in the hand of the accused. It was the source of much fear because it meant the pirate was to be deposed as leader by force if necessary, or else killed outright. I thought that was cool. And I thought this was really good for Disney back then, is they didn't explain that. They left it up to your imagination. It's not like they said, oh no, the black spot, somebody's trying to judge me, and this is bad.
Yeah.
And, like, they didn't have to, give us all the insight. They left it up to our imagination at first to kind of, put those pieces together, and I appreciated that.
Same here, yeah. Show it, don't tell it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I thought this was insanely interesting. You ready? There are over 50 film and TV adaptations of Treasure Island.
Jesus.
What is really cool is 1918 was the first silent film version. 1934 was the first talkie adaptation. And 1950, the one we're talking about, was the first version in color and Walt Disney's first completely live-action film. And just to put that into perspective, Jungle Cruise, which just came out with The Rock in it, is their 313th live-action film. So
Holy
just
shit.
to give you an idea of how many live-action films they've done.
Also an adventure romp on a ship.
A sequel to this version was made in 1954, which we talked about also starred Robert Newton as Long John Silver, and it was directed by Byron Haskin as well. However, it did not involve Disney. Disney did not produce that version.
Wow.
Or that sequel.
I wonder how they allowed that to happen.
Maybe it was before Disney was the powerhouse they are today.
Or maybe they no longer
Probably.
retained the rights, and he was able to do a sequel.
Maybe they sold them off. Maybe they were like, somebody else can do that. Or
Interesting.
But then again, so many. I mean, we're talking about it right now. I mean, MGM put out a version in 1934. Maybe they didn't really own the rights. Maybe it was kind of more of a free for all.
I wonder if it's a public domain thing,
perhaps
Night of the Living Dead.
Who knows? There were over, and still more counting, I'm sure, but over 24 major stage adaptations. Now, I'm sure there's a million if you go down to college campuses and high school performances, but talking major
big productions,
Broadway and big productions, there's been over 24. Also, radio, audio books, music, comics, and video games. There's been a shit ton of adaptations. Damn. So this is, just the 50 film adaptations alone is such an impressive thing.
and I bet you Robert Louis Stevenson died penniless in a gutter somewhere.
Oh, yeah, probably.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, I don't know if that's a fact, but you've seen it happen before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft.
Mm-hmm. The MacGuffin Guild.
Yeah.
We're just too far ahead of our time. That's the problem.
Yeah. Long John Silver, again, Robert Newton, he died in 1956 at the age of 50.
Oh wow!
While we're talking about death.
So not too long after the sequel came out. 2 years after the sequel. Wow.
Pieces of 8. The parrot kept shouting "Pieces of 8." Do you guys know what that is?
I've heard of that before.
Apparently, it has to do with Spanish dollar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Spanish dollar, also known as the piece of 8, is a silver coin of approximately 35 millimeters in diameter, worth 8 Spanish reals, reales. So it's a Spanish dollar, so that's interesting.
Interesting.
Okay.
Long John Silver takes advantage of children, which I also thought was interesting, how he talked Jim Hawkins into getting him the rum so he could literally murder someone.
Yeah.
But then I thought, again, also interesting, that the good guys, quote unquote, also took advantage of the kid.
Yeah.
And they literally like set him up to be their
Spy.
You know, like their spy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, it's a 12-year-old, you know, like protect him.
Desperate times.
Yeah, true.
Hey, back then, 12 years old, you were an adult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you didn't have 2 kids and a mustache,
Yeah.
you were scoffed at. You were laughed at.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Justin, you said you watched the Muppet version of Treasure Island. Did any Muppets get
Yeah.
shot in the face?
No, I don't recall one Muppet get shot in the face.
Who played Long John Silver?
That was
would
Tim
be-
Curry, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tim Curry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's a part in that, I know people might not be prepared for this because they didn't know we'd be talking about the Muppet version, so there'll be spoilers ahead. But, ooh, sorry.
No.
Yeah, that's good.
There's a part with Miss Piggy, and I feel like there was a weird sexual innuendo about her dating Long John Silver.
Oh,
and,
man.
Really?
And it being like,
Hello, Long John. Oh no, him too? Well, if you married me, what does that have to do with it?
making something like, oh no, it's because he's tall or something. I can't remember the exact quote, but I was like, oh, that was kind of sounded like it was referring to his penis.
A little risque.
Yeah, in a Muppet movie, but whatever. I might have been looking too much into it.
Possibly.
Anyway, that's my points. Any final thoughts before we proceed?
No, I'm good.
All right, fellas. So we are in for a special treat this evening. This is something we haven't done on the show before. Actually, full disclosure, what brought this film to the MacGuffin Guild is, if you go back a couple weeks, just to paint a picture for you here, I ran into a guy who I've always respected his art through other means, non-film related art. He used to be in a band called Coffin Fly that I came across years ago. I know, Justin, you've seen them before. You have, you're familiar with that band. Mm-hmm. So, I'm friends with him on Facebook. His name is Fatt Matt, is what he goes by. I don't know if that's his birth name, but
If it's not, it should have been.
it should have
This
been.
pirate name.
But yeah, really, really cool dude. And he's been in a couple bands since. He's been in, didn't he play in a band called Black Hand for a period?
Yeah,
Justin?
And because I know him from Coffin Fly, and I know because I'm friends with the guys in Black Hand. I know I saw him play with them a few times.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that when you see him performing live, it's like it's hard to take your eyes off of him because he's such a character. I saw recently him post something, and he was asking about his stories, his short stories, and he was asking his social media following if anyone would be intrigued if he were to record any of his short stories in either, audio book format or podcast format, and that got me thinking that I would love to reach out to him and see if we could get our hands on one of his stories. And he was awesome enough to record something for us so we on the Guild could have an exclusive. And what's really awesome is he's getting ready to join us. And we're going to talk about Treasure Island. But then we're going to world premiere one of his short stories called Sons of Poseidon right here on this show, which, according to him, was inspired by this film, Treasure Island. So we all thought this was a phenomenal opportunity to open us up to something that we normally would not have watched, which, again, like Justin says all the time, it's all about discovery and growth and learning, and I thought that was perfect. But 2, then we get the special treat of not only bringing Matt on and getting to chat with him for a little bit, but also then unveiling one of his stories. And I think it's really cool, and I hope you guys get enjoyment out of it as well. So, Mike, Justin, any thoughts on the matter?
No.
No, I think just roll with it.
Yeah, just excited to get in it and talk to the fat monster Matt.
Awesome. So with that said, I would like to introduce each and every one of you to the one and only Fatt Matt.
I raised you better than this.
So first of all, Matt, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come hang out with us on the MacGuffin Guild, man. That really means a lot.
I just wanted to say thanks for having me on. This is cool. I never did this before, so this is awesome.
All right, I say we get right into it. How about it?
Cool.
So what I would like to know is the history you have with this film and how it's inspired you or had an impact on you over your lifetime.
Sure. Well, I guess like everybody here, probably when you're a little kid, you just like you want to go on adventures. And the town I grew up in, I don't know if you guys know like Delco area at all, like Upper Darby, Drexel Hill area. So I grew up around there. And first of all, there's like a lot of old homes and stuff. And me and my friends would either go into abandoned places, or I was riding my bike constantly. I just always loved these like adventure stories, just like any of us probably here. And when you're a little kid, you're a young man, you know, you want to either go on a ship or like I always wanted to be in the army. I was like, I wanted. So anyway, I had these amazing bookends. They were wooden globe bookends as a kid, and they were old maps with ships on them, and they had sea serpents on them, and it always said, you know, like there's monsters beyond this point. And I was like, I don't know, man, that just like always stuck with me as a kid, because I have this horrible fear of sea creatures. I don't know why, but like, yeah, sea serpents, Loch Ness monster, all that shit, Kraken. Oh my God, terrifies me. Yeah. But I love it.
Yeah, like in Clash of the Titans.
Oh my God.
The Kraken thing was horrifying. That was the most horrifying part of the whole movie.
Dude, yes.
And Medusa, but yeah.
I've been to Castle Loch Ness.
Have you really?
Yeah, I was 6 years old, but I was there.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
That is cool. Yeah.
Actually, like in the castle, looking down over the water and everything. Yep.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess if your family's from that area.
we went. That's the only time I've been. I was 6 years old, but we went over there to visit my mom's family and stuff, so.
Oh, dude, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see all the, you know, I want to go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where the Mothman Bridge was. I mean, I've been obsessed with monsters my entire life. I mean, from womb to tomb, all I'd love is monsters, King Kong. Godzilla is like my obsession. Anyway, I guess, yeah, pirates always meant something to me. Like, I had a pirate birthday party as a little kid, and I love it. And they remind me of Halloween, too, which is my other obsession. And like, I build a haunted house every year for Halloween, and this year's theme is pirates. And we're actually building a giant pirate ship facade in my front yard and everything. Yeah, it's going to be cool. So, I was away at reclass school. The Army had me learn a new job for this deployment. Originally, I was a vehicle mechanic, and they had me reclass. Basically, you get a new MOS, a new job, and they had me go away to school for 7 months to be an avionics mechanic, which is like I do wiring on UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, Alpha Lima Black Hawk helicopters. And I started just reading Treasure Island because I was like, you know, I've always loved the story, but I never actually read the original book. So I read that thing so fast. I loved it so much. And it's way more violent than I remember. And I just, oh man, it was just so cool. It was really gritty. And I love that, he wrote, that song, the lyrics to, 15 men on a dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. He just made that up without hearing that anywhere or anything. He just made it up. And it's cool to see over the years how it's been taken and made into actual full songs. And I just think that's really neat, especially like with Disney. And I just love Disney. Disney's cool. The Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Ride. Oh, come on, man. It don't get better than that. It's so cool.
What I learned through this, and this is one thing that Justin says it all the time about how with the MacGuffin Guild, it's been an excuse for us to watch things we typically wouldn't watch. And we've learned so much over the course of doing the show. It's been really amazing because I got to be honest with you. I didn't think that 3 days ago I would have been sitting down to watch 1950s Treasure Island. I just didn't see that coming, you know?
Having missed it in my childhood, I kind of was like, well, I guess I'll just never watch it because I'm already in my 40s.
Exactly.
Like, what's the point at this, you know?
I've already given up hope, but, you know, here we are. But what I learned, which I think is great, is the performance of Robert Newton as Long John Silver.
Oh, yeah.
And how he changed the game. I mean, he changed, according to what I've read, he changed the way that we perceive in pop culture the pirate, you know? His performance.
Everybody was like a fancy boy pirate before that. You know, everybody, you know, they sounded like princes and dukes. I honestly, it reminds me of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia when they get really fancy and they look like Mozart and they have the wigs on. But that's how it was, and it was so cool seeing Now, the Disney films obviously are not as gritty as the book. And there's another book that inspired me too, On Stranger Tide, which inspired Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tide, and that's what comes with the more supernatural side of pirates.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you say the Disney film isn't that gritty, but we were discussing earlier in the show that someone actually gets shot in the face, and I can't recall another Disney film where someone takes a bullet to the face. So that's pretty gritty for
blood
Disney.
And everything.
Well, I guess Disney owns Dimension Films, so there's probably something else. I know what you mean with the Disney brand name. No, definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah, there is some gore in that film.
Yeah, it's you know, shootings and stabbings.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
That's how they got things done.
They stabbed a 12-year-old.
They did.
Yeah.
So let me ask you then, having read the book, the performance of Robert Newton, did he do it justice? Did he take the character of Long John Silver and improve upon it? What do you think?
Oh yeah, completely. I think they did a wonderful job. I think he took it upon himself to create a whole new, in my opinion, this is probably badly worded, but it's almost like a new genre of acting, because he overacted so much, which I'm a fan of, because I'm a big older movie fan. You know, people come in my barbershop and they're like, "Oh, I don't like older movies. The acting just wasn't. It was too bad." I was like, "Well, no, it wasn't bad. It was just different." You know, they were used to
of its time.
Exactly, they're used to the stage.
Yeah.
When you look at Bela Lugosi and you see all these long dramatic pauses in between his lines in Dracula, you know, that's for, he knows what he's doing. He's not an idiot, you know. And yeah, man, as Long John Silver, God, he did it justice. I wish they had incorporated though a couple more things in his character. Like, I thought it was interesting that he had a Jamaican wife in the book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they go into that in the book. It just kind of shows you that he was like I don't know how PC this is, but like a bohemian for the times. Basically, he was very different. Like, he was married to a black Jamaican woman in the book. And they make that kind of a big deal to show you he's just been around the world. He's not just some cook, because he starts out as a cook in an inn. And man, yeah, it was cool.
He's his own man.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, he does things his way.
Yeah, and that's his downfall.
Yeah, but also what makes him great. So it's,
well, it makes him a wonderful character to read and to watch. Yes.
Yeah. So your exposure then with this story was the book first, or had you seen the Disney film
I
prior
read
to
the
that?
book first. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
That's something Justin and I both discussed, because we're also readers.
Oh, cool.
I am not.
You've read books, but you're not.
I'm a visual learner.
Yeah. But we were discussing that before, that now both Justin and I want to read the book.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shit, man, it's a good read. Yeah. It's not even really hard to get through. I mean, it's Robert Louis Stevenson, so it's a bit of Old English, but it's not that hard. If you guys like reading,
I've been known to read Shakespeare for my own enjoyment. So.
Oh wow. Oh yeah. That's cool.
So
man.
I should be okay.
No, that's awesome. I read a book over deployment. Are you guys into punk rock at all, or like old punk and stuff like that?
Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah.
There's a book that came out, I want to say like 2016 or so, but anyway, it's called Disco's Out, Murder's In. And that book I couldn't put down. It's about the punk rock gangs in LA during the late 70s through about like 85, like 1985, and this guy named Frank the Shank tells his whole story about it up and coming into La Mirada punks. Anyway, it's a really interesting story. It's honestly, I don't mean for this to sound lame, but it's a lot like Pirates. It really is. It's these young men who are, I mean, they're underage when they start. I mean, they start being in gangs at 12 and 13, and they rob, pillage, and assault people in brutal ways, and it's an interesting story,
Yeah.
I just added it to my Amazon cart.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good comparison, like the punk rock gangs to the pirates. I agree. I think they're like modern day pirates.
Oh, plus the way you dress is very flamboyant. Like, pirates wanted you to know they were coming. They always threw the Jolly Roger or some form of the Jolly Roger. Blackbeard had his what was it, like the skeleton with the heart and the arrow and stuff like that. And it was punks were the same way. It was like you put on this uniform still, but it's your own spin on things, and you don't want to look like just every member of society. I grew up on punk rock, and I used to get my ass kicked because I had leopard print hair and a dangly earring and a mohawk and shit. So.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So when you did finally watch one of the film adaptations, was it the 1950 Disney version you saw first?
Yeah. In fact, that's the only one I've ever seen.
Wow.
You were the one who had told me about the other ones. So that was cool.
Yeah, when you said Treasure Island, I looked it up and like a shit ton popped up, but I'm like, which one? So, which we did learn there are 50 film and TV adaptations.
Wow.
24 like major Broadway ones or something?
Yeah, 24 major stage adaptations. And then what's cool about it, 1918 was the first silent film version, 1934 was the first talkie adaptation, and then 1950 was the first version in color, which also ended up being Walt Disney's first completely live-action film. So... That's pretty awesome.
A lot of firsts.
Yes. Up until that point,
very,
they
cool.
at least had like a little bit of animation, like Song of the South and that kind of stuff. Still had some cartoons. in it.
Yeah, they had that already.
A bit touchy, but
Yeah.
So I want to shift focus a little bit, Matt.
Sure.
I know you've been involved in a ton of musical endeavors over the years, from Coffin Fly to Twitching Witches to Fat Monster Matt. But what I want to talk to you about now is your storytelling side.
Oh, yeah.
Your creative endeavors when it comes to that. And I'm not just talking lyrical storytelling, but actual short stories and such. And the reason I'm bringing this up for the Guild listeners out there is because coming up in the show, we have a world premiere of one of your short stories, which is entitled Sons of Poseidon. And it's really exciting. Mm-hmm. So I just want to tap into a little bit of what you're doing with that aspect of your creativity these days.
Sure. So... that's actually what I went to my school for originally. 6th through like 9th grade, I was a communication arts major at Cab Calloway School of the Arts.
Nice.
And that school, the way it worked was you had a major and a minor in middle school. So my major, communication arts, which was like writing, and then we learned how to like build websites, which I know none of now, by the way. But and then my minor was drama. Yeah. Yeah. And every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you did your major, and then you had all your other classes, math, science, whatever. And then every Tuesday and Thursday, you did your minor. Well, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, your first hour of your class, because you had a 2-hour time block to do your major class during the day, you would have to write a short story. And I've always been a storyteller, just my whole life. I just loved to tell stories. Like, I loved scary stories growing up. I just loved sitting around a campfire and telling stories. So yeah, I literally wrote every day of my life for like 4 years, and then it just became song. Like, I wasn't really exposed to music for a while. We got internet late. We were really broke growing up. And when we finally got like a working computer, the only albums I had were like, I think I had Green Day, Dookie all the way through Warning. And other than that, I had a compilation album of Hellcat records with the Distillers on it. And those were like the only bands I ever knew. And when we had gotten a computer, my dad was also a very strict person. I don't remember how, but the computer came with like Ozzy, Crazy Train, and Knocking on Heaven's Door by Guns N' Roses. I still remember this. And I heard it for the first time, and I was like 13, and it blew my fucking mind. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do this now.
Yeah.
And then my buddy showed me The Exploited. who he had the album. It was their live album, and it was the singer with the big pink mohawk on the front, and the vinyl was clear. And he goes, "Hey, this is punk rock. These guys don't know how to play their instruments." And I was like, "That's awesome." And we listened to it, and I couldn't get enough. And I was like, "Oh my God, I need to find out everything about punk rock possible." And then I did. And then when I heard the Misfits for the first time, it blew my fucking mind again. And I couldn't stop listening to them for 4 years.
Wow.
Because I was always obsessed with old horror movies, but I didn't think anybody else knew even what that was. Like, I knew what Rocky Horror Picture Show was, like, as a little kid, and I used to, like, I was partially, like, raised by this lesbian couple, and they would introduce me to just different things, you know, different cultures and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And we used to rent Rocky Horror Picture Show, and we'd get the rice and the water guns and the newspaper. And I was like 8 years old, having the time of my life. And I didn't think anybody else even knew what that shit was. And when I heard the Misfits for the first time, and I heard let's see, the first song I ever heard was She. It was Collection 1. And yeah, man.
That was my introduction to the Misfits too.
Really?
With the yellow and black Crimson Ghost skull.
Oh, yeah.
I remember my dad took me out to LA. I was celebrating like 8th grade graduation, and we had a friend that lived out there. He was like, "Hey, we can stay with our friend for like 2 weeks, and we'll just sleep on the floor, and we get to go see LA." And I was like, "That is awesome." And we went into this punk store, and I remember like I knew a couple of punk bands like Bad Brains. I'd been introduced to Bad Brains, and I was obsessed with them. The only album I could find was it was a 5-song like Bad Brains EP, and I would listen to that thing on repeat so much. And then this girl in there was like, "Oh, have you ever?" I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And like with the skull, you know, the Crimson Ghost skull on there. She was like, "You never heard the Misfits?" I was like, "No." And yeah, man, I bought that record and I couldn't stop listening to. I mean, seriously, for like 4 years it was that. Then I got like, you know, Legacy of Brutality. Then I got Collection 2, and then oh my God, and it just like, still to this day I can listen to them records, and even though the Misfits are what they are now or whatever, they're getting $1 million a show.
Yeah.
Them early records is exactly like it was like how I felt inside. I was like so obsessed with 50s B movies and just old black and white movies, and yeah, it was cool, man.
I think I can speak for the other guys here. I think we're all Misfits fans, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, definitely.
I came to them later probably than you guys did, but man, I love them too.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
I just realized this was sitting on my desk. I have this patch. I got this years ago. I didn't have anything good to put
Oh,
it
you
on.
got the patch? Name one song, bro.
Yeah.
What was that one, Knocking on Heaven's Door? I think the first song that got me was when I heard Skulls.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like I remember just listening to that song over and over and over again. I was like, oh man, it's so awesome.
When I probably first started like actually paying attention, like I know I heard the Misfits when I was a little bit younger, but I didn't really get into them. But when Pre-Hallowed Cain, still in your parents'
that was my band years ago.
Yeah, that was. But before,
Brown Bones.
Brown Bones.
Yeah.
Before it was
maybe
Hallowed Cain.
3797.
And you were in your parents' basement, and you guys were playing those. And I think Justin was singing at one time.
Yeah, you know why? You know why we played Misfits? Because we could never find a drummer who showed up, and it was the only drum beats I was capable of playing.
Yep.
So I would put my bass down and hop on drums. I mean, who can't play a Misfits drum beat, you know?
Yeah.
Shit. I had heard them, and all I wanted to do was play their songs, so I started a band where I played guitar. I didn't really even know how to play guitar. I just would learn Misfit songs, and I'd come home from school, and I would in my room, and I would just plug my guitar in, and I would just play the same fucking like 20 songs over and over again, yell at the top of my lungs. My dad probably wanted to kill me, and because I'd played drums before that in bands. Like I'd been playing since I was 12, I guess. Yeah. I remember I started a band called 1962, which was the year Marilyn Monroe died, and that was why the Misfits are called the Misfits. And it's funny, my wife now, she went to high school with me. We went to high school together, and she had drawn up our T-shirt. And it's just funny, like years later, we met back up and married now.
That's great. Well,
That's awesome.
congrats on that. Oh, by the way,
Thanks.
Wasn't your birthday recently?
Yeah, it was on Monday. So
well, happy slightly belated birthday, brother.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Happy birthday, man.
Sorry about that.
31.
Oh, you're a youngin'.
Yeah, we're a bunch of old farts.
We all got a decade on you, at least.
Ooh.
Yeah, it hurts, man. My knees hurt.
I hear you.
So the one thing I will say about your musical approach, and one thing I always really appreciated about you, is I always felt you were, and again, this is coming from afar from the audience. Like, I didn't know you. I had seen you, but you know that saying that's like, that child is really wise for his age. I felt like you were from the past, and you were like, you time traveled here, and the way you sang, like it was this old school rockabilly presentation that you had, is just it was something that was like so foreign to like modern day, which I thought was freaking wonderful.
Yeah, thanks.
And the voice. And for you not getting into music until later, and only really learning on Green Day in the early days, for you to have the vocal capabilities to kind of like have that gritty old school rockabilly, like you said, those hollow body guitars, like that was such a cool thing.
Thanks, man. Yeah. So my sister was the one that my mom was able to afford all the lessons for growing up, and we were both living in my mom's house. So I basically just learned by listening to her. She sang Broadway. She was always doing musicals. And then I was like, I want to do musicals. So I started going to a summer camp, and I'd go live with my mom. I then moved in with my dad. It's a long fucking story, but I moved in with my dad in Delaware, and I would go to this musical theater camp called Summer Stage. It's where Tina Fey went. She talks about it all the time. Yeah, she's awesome. And I was friends with her niece growing up too. Yeah,
that's cool.
But yeah, so I just learned to sing by just doing it. Like I just never, I don't know. And then the way and I sing in my voice. I never put on a voice or I say my R's when I sing too, which a lot of people don't do. That's probably why it sounds that way.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they hide their R's when they sing, and that drives me insane. Because it's not their real voice, Or they try and sound like old soul singers, and I'm like, you're Adele. Like, I know you have an amazing voice, but that's not your real talking voice. I know you're putting on a voice, and it's odd to me. It really drives me bonkers. And I used to sit in front of bars when I was younger, and I only knew 3 chords on the guitar. And I would make up songs about people walking in. Whoever was walking in, I would make up a song. It would be, a couple on their first date, you could tell. They're walking up all nervous. And I would just start singing about them and making fun of them. And some people get mad, and other people find it hilarious. And it's with rock. When I heard rockabilly for the first time, I was always obsessed with the 50s. So when I heard the Cramps for the first time, and then like dug deeper and deeper and deeper, it was like, oh, this makes sense for me. I understand this like primitive rhythm where I can just be mean and kind of say whatever I want, and some people, they'll hit me for it, and other people love me for it. And I played a show the other night at the Oddity Bar on Friday night as Twitching Witches, and we never plug in. We just set up, right in the middle of people. A big upright bass, my best friend Joey, Juicebox Joey, and then me. And people don't know what to expect. I pull out my harmonica rack and my guitar, and I just let it rip, and I go insane. And it's basically every song is the same beat, rockabilly, and that's what's great about it, because I'll improvise lyrics or tell a story, and I do it in my normal voice. And that's it's funny just that you brought that up, that my voice is raw and stuff. That's just me yelling. That's actually me yelling.
No, I always found it, I don't know if it's the right word, but I always found it kind of like endearing. Like it was like, it always stuck with me. Like the first time, in fact, I think the first time I saw Coffin Fly was at a house party in Newark, Delaware, I believe.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it was like,
was it the right where that bridge is at? Underneath that bridge, 896 is right there.
Yeah, 896. What's that little? There's like a little historical thing, like a
I
don't know, some kind of something to do with gold or silver or some shit. I don't remember. Iron Hill.
I don't know, but I know.
Pirate booty.
Yeah. It's a treasure. There was a hidden treasure there.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
No, but yeah, it was in that area, 896. And then I had since seen you a couple times. I think Poppycock, you played a show.
Always, yeah. I'm always playing for them.
So, real quick then, so where I would like to take this, the Fat Monster Matt stuff, the newer material you're doing now, there is a song that I cannot stop listening to. That Beneath Your Eyes.
Oh, yeah,
Dude,
you like that one?
I fucking love that tune. That is an awesome tune.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, man. That's like, in fact, at the I might even like play that at the end of the show with your permission, of course. Yeah, at the very end, after we close it out, maybe we'll play that song for the guild members who are listening.
Oh, man.
But I love that tune.
Thanks, man.
So, without further ado, Fatt Matt and the MacGuffin Guild would like to present to you, the guild listeners, the world premiere of Sons of Poseidon. And before we dig in, Matt, is there anything you would like the guild members to know before they hear this?
No, I guess just I hope your audience enjoys it. This is a story I wrote in my room really late at night, and I recorded. I sent it over to Pat, and he was like, "Hey, you should do an audio recording." And I don't know. I think it's cool.
Yeah, man.
I hope your audience enjoys it.
Well, here we go.
Good evening, my beautiful worms. My name is Fatt Matt, and tonight I'm going to be reading you a short story that I wrote titled Sons of Poseidon. Vidal looked over his shoulder at his co-conspirator, all the while feeling his arm leaving its socket. Constance was too slow with the carry, and it was storming like the devil's tears out on the shore. Shelter was a must for the pair of thieves to survive this wretched night, and Vidal's patience was wearing thin.
Master Constance, I swear on my father's grave, if you don't move with haste to find some covering, I'll slit your throat where you stand,
Vidal bellowed, trying to overpower the sounds of thunder the winds were carrying. Well, why don't we switch sides? Constance rebutted. My side's heavier. Vidal ignored Constance's request and began to pull harder until Constance ran beside him, moving away from the tide that brought them ashore. They ran into the woods as jagged edges of lightning filled the sky and formed demon faces across the dark clouds.
I've heard tell of a series of caves along this island,
Vidal stated.
But this darkness is the thickest I've ever seen, and this god-forsaken rain is blinding.
Thunder shook the air, and lightning crashed into the ground, splitting a tree beside them. Constance's face went pale. The heavens are raining down upon us for tonight to claim our souls for what we done. Vidal stopped in his tracks, squinted his eyes, smiled, and said,
For what we've done, heaven ain't looking for us. This sure be hell's fire raining from the sky, 'cause only the devil himself claims the souls of the damned. And with these findings, I plan on buying me soul back, and then some.
I aim the same, cried Constance with a grin. Vidal looked back at Constance.
Good, 'cause there be our cave,
he said, as lightning crawled across the tree line, illuminating the entrance to a monstrous cave. Like rats running from a broom, they fled inside and set their new treasures on the ground between them. Blinded by the overwhelming darkness, Vidal slowly felt his way down to the cold floor and sat his back up against the chest. Constance followed. Not too bad, eh? Constance chuckled out. If and only the powder didn't blow the flying arsenal all to hell, we'd be as good as geese.
And with fine timing,
Vidal chimed in.
Take 13 lives and the storm takes your only vessel. Fine timing indeed. Nowhere now to even spend me money, and it's burning a hole in me many pockets.
Our money, Mr. Vidal, Constance interrupted. I earn just as much as you in just as many ways. Vidal looked ahead into the darkness in front of him.
Of course, Mr. Constance, you've earned your keep,
he said shallowly. You know this noise is cursed, Mr. Vidal, Constance began. I could feel it in the way of the sea and hear it in Cap's voice. Dead man walking, I kept saying to myself. He knew though, Mr. Vidal.
Knew what?
Asked Vidal. Knew it was his final hours, Constance continued.
I don't think he'd known it'd be us that was spilling his guts when he slept, but he knew they'd be spilled. Since I's the one who bled him out, I'll tell ya, he didn't know tonight different from any other, Mr. Constance. Vidal began. With both eyes closed, he sure slept deep. 'Cause by the time we had done 6 in, I was getting sloppy and I knew it. But there he lay, peaceful as pie when I opened his cabin door. I cut him up quick as the rest of 'em. No different. I tell ya, he didn't see his future nor the rest of the arsenals. I still say this night is cursed, Mr. Vidal, Constance stated, as he began to close his eyes. Best keep an eye on our backs and our backs against the walls. Spoken like a true intellectual, Mr. Constance, Vidal said sarcastically. We hunt for a lifeboat in the morning. At least one could have been spared. As they put their backs to the western wall of the cave, Constance lay his head back and fell into a deep sleep. Vidal, awake and dissatisfied with their current situation, peered over his shoulder and stared at Constance. He could make out his silhouette against the stormy tree line just barely. Valuables divided 2 ways was fine, but valuables to oneself, that was a treasure worth killing for. One cannot sleep with the taste of blood on their tongue and an empty stomach, a voice graveled from the dark end of the cave. All the hairs on Vidal's neck stood up and he began to sweat. Who said that? He fired back, hoping no words be returned. Lightning struck outside, revealing to Vidal a glimpse of what appeared to be another person standing beside him. Frantically stood up and slowly headed back towards the entrance. Again, he felt strange, his body cold and exasperated all at the same time. He kept Constance in view, still passed out against the wall. Stealing, raping, and murdering on the sea do not go unnoticed, boy. The sons of Poseidon feed from the terrors mankind commits, and your flesh is as warm and ready as it gets. The voice screamed this time as lightning flashed again, revealing a ghoul of a creature, naked, wrapped in chains with sunken eye sockets, pale wrinkled flesh, stained with blood in every skin fold, and a gray beard coiled like a snake to the ground. Vidal was speechless, with tears streaming down his cheeks. He was barely able to whimper. I ain't afraid of no sons, of no man. He pulled out his dagger and pointed it at the darkness in front of him. A cold breath pelted his face, and his eyes stung. Vidal was face to face with it. Man? The creature laughed. Beware, pirate. Beware the edge of the map, for there be monsters out there. As lightning struck, Vidal gazed into the creature's abyss and fell to the ground, though it felt different than before. Warmer, wetter. It began to shake. The creature before him had disappeared, and as he turned to look over his shoulder, he saw the entrance to the cave begin to close. With one last glimpse of a lightning strike, Vidal tilted his head towards the cave's ceiling and discovered teeth.
Dude, that is so freaking awesome.
Thank you.
So, Matt, here's what I would love for you to do now. Tell us a little bit about Sons of Poseidon. Tie it back into Treasure Island and how that kind of inspired you and influenced the story. And I think it's really fitting with Robert Newton. We talked earlier about his voice and the way he sold himself as a pirate, and how you took that and did your own thing with your story. I thought was freaking awesome, dude.
Oh, I'm glad you guys liked it. I wasn't sure if it was going to be cheesy or not.
No, hell no, dude.
Okay.
I was all about it.
This is what I said to these guys. I was talking to them about your production, basically, because, you got the sound effects, the lightning and storm sounds and stuff, which I thought was a nice little touch. It's subtle, but it really helps to set the mood.
It puts you in the environment for sure.
I did what I could. I recorded all that in a sleeping bag. So.
Wow.
I really did.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was overseas when I did that.
Oh, okay.
Wow. That's wild.
I was telling them, like, because I've had a few short stories published, probably, God, getting close to 10 years ago now. Jesus.
What?
Yeah.
Where can I find them?
Good luck.
Back when they were still printed on paper. What was that one compilation book that you did? A Quick Bite of Flesh or something? What was that called, Mike?
There's a Quick Bite of Flesh, yeah.
Yeah,
That was like,
I have that one. Your story's great in that one, by the way.
Thank you.
What was that one called?
That one's just like a flash fiction. The name of that story was...
shit.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't even remember.
You know it's good when you can't even remember what you've had published.
Yeah.
It's been so long. I think I had like eight or nine short stories published, like in like a year or so span, and then I just kind of... But, so anyway, coming from that world of, writing, and I told these guys I actually did read in front of a small crowd once, maybe like 24 people. And I'm not one to get in front of people. Like, I don't like being in front of people and all that. Yeah. But I still did it, and I felt like a total ass afterwards. But I read, just a piece of flash fiction, a real short piece. But the way you did yours, like, I could never do that because I guess I don't have, like, I couldn't differentiate between the characters and stuff like you did with the different voices. And
oh, okay.
Like, I just...
Your voices were on point. Like, it was clear.
Yeah.
It was easy from the beginning to follow who was speaking just based on the voices alone.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I really appreciate that that feedback because, I was a little nervous about that. I had to be quiet. I had 3 roommates, and I was like,
wow.
Yeah, and I'm like trying to do these different voices, and I'm like, okay, guys, like, you're gonna hear some weird stuff coming from my sleeping bag. Just if you can be quiet just for a little bit. I think I did like 2 or 3 takes, and that was all I could do. Wow.
Yeah.
And
well, it turned out really well. Like, I couldn't do something like that because I'm just not creative enough. I can write the...
No, you could. You got to let go of inhibition.
These guys will tell you I'm not good with technology at all. So,
he couldn't do it for that reason alone.
This is very true. Yeah.
All you need is a phone and a sleeping bag, man. Aren't you paying attention?
Yeah, that's all you need. Yeah.
True. No excuses.
Yeah.
No.
That's a good no excuses lesson. Yeah.
That story is awesome. Your presentation of that story is awesome. And what you were able to accomplish with a small recording device and a sleeping bag is fucking phenomenal. You should be proud of that.
Thank you. I used these headphones, actually.
Wow.
Wow. I did it with these headphones and my iPad. Yeah. And I just did it all in my sleeping bag. And yeah.
Well, I'm even more impressed now.
I do a lot of my... Like, I do vocals for all my songs for Fat Monster Matt. All that's in a sleeping bag.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yeah. I put everything in my iPad. I make all the, I write the song in my head, and then I put it all out, and I make it all on GarageBand, and then I just record, usually using these headphones again.
Amazing.
And, because I like a lo-fi sound. I always have. I used to record on 4-track recorders back in the day, cassette, 4-track cassette recorders, and I love the way it sounds. It's cool.
That's awesome, dude. You're obviously someone with natural talent, and it's just so funny to see, even with that natural talent, how you're utilizing like roundabout ways to accomplish your goals, like instead of going out and dropping crazy money like you see some musicians do on the top of the line shit to produce their sound. The fact you're doing it with sleeping bags and iPhones and cheap headphones, no offense.
No, I mean, don't take it. It's, I always tell, people say, hey, I want to be in a band, or I want to play music like you, or like little kids. And I'm like, listen, buy a cheap guitar, tell stories, people will listen. Don't buy a Les Paul. You don't need that shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I wrote all those Fat Monster Matt songs. I wrote them on a guitar I got from Second and Charles for $50 that when I was away at reclass school. I just sat there and like you said, like natural talent, like I very much appreciate that. But it has been years of honing that type of a thing where it's like I said, I had to go on the street corners and play. until people stopped throwing bottles at me and started throwing money in my guitar case, and literally people would throw shit at me, you know.
Wow.
And I would sit there at parties, all my friends getting stoned. I knew 3 chords on the guitar. I would just make up songs, and they all, you know, they would suck until they started being funny. And that's really how I learned.
Okay.
So I'm assuming the same could be said about writing and storytelling as well. You don't need a $4,000 computer.
Sure, yeah.
So tell us, Matt, a little bit about how you got into writing and storytelling and how you ultimately wrote Sons of Poseidon.
One day, I was listening to this cool podcast called The Wicked Horror Show. It's just dumb, like, I don't know, not dumb, I shouldn't say, but I love horror movies, and they always update me on whatever's on Shudder, basically. And I was like, all right, I'm going to watch Shudder.
Nice.
So,
Hey, well, we're all about that.
oh, excellent,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's my life. Horror is my life. Monsters, horror,
Yep.
that's my life.
Nice.
And they were talking to an author, and I turned to my wife, and I was like, I could write a book. And she was like, honey, you're already doing so many things. And I was like, no, I can write a book.
Yeah.
So I started writing a book, and I was like, fuck, this is hard.
It's hard.
and I'm like, all right, let me write some short stories because I know I can, and I'll put them all together in a book.
And
so
It's a good idea.
yeah. So I was overseas, and I am already really bad at sleeping. And I was just having so much trouble over there sleeping. Every night I was getting maybe 3 to 4 hours, maybe. Ugh. And then I'd go to work all day, and then I'd come back and I'd cut hair at night in our room. The barbershops were closed a lot of the time because of COVID. It was just like one thing after another, and everybody just was hitting me up for a haircut, and I was just exhausted, and I couldn't sleep. So I would start designing my haunted house, and I was like, fuck, I want to do pirates this year. I've always wanted to do pirates. I have the room finally. I've moved like more times than I want to admit in the past fucking decade, and I finally have room. So I started designing my haunted house, and I'm like, holy shit, I want to make a story for my haunted house. And then I started writing kind of like a backstory to my haunt, and I was like, man, this sucks. I could do better than that. And
I can relate to this.
I really, yeah. So
Stops and starts.
Dude, yeah. And so it just all poured out of me at like, you know, it'd be like midnight or whatever, and I'd be like wide awake, and I hate staring at my phone. But when you deploy, there's a lot of downtime. That's the thing soldiers will never tell you. We're not doing Billy Badass shit. You know, it's like you're just fucking, I mean, you'll be sitting and waiting, and especially like I work on helicopters, and like you're just waiting for things to break, so you're just sitting there. So I had my iPad, and I would just write, and then finally, it just all poured out of me, and I sent it to my dad. My dad does he does advertising for a living, and he was like, I was like, hey dad, can you look at this and just see like what mistakes I made? And he basically sent me back like just corrections in my grammar, stuff like that, and that was it. It just all kind of poured out of me. And and I've seen a couple ghosts in my life, so I've always wanted to do ghost stories. I think I was telling you were saying you came back from Salem. Well, sorry to go off track here, but
that's what we do here.
That's what we do.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do.
Well, this is kind of a wild story. So we were staying in Danvers, which is the town right next door to Salem. And we had walked around the graveyards all day. And me and my friend went back to the hotel room. And she was across the room. And I said, hey, Allison, can you shut the light off? And there was the big, breakfast table in between us and everything. As soon as she did, I jumped back because I thought she was playing a joke on me, and I thought she leaped on the table and grabbed at me. I said, Allison, what the fuck? And she was like, what? And flipped the light on. She's still all the way across the room, and this happened like, half a second. And I was like, are you messing with me? Like, I just saw something. No, I'm not, blah, blah, blah. And then she didn't sleep that whole night. She was very like... she could like see through the veil, basically. She went to like a haunted high school, and she said she's always seen ghosts and whatever. So I guess something stuck to us because the next day, by the way, I had an old 88 Cadillac hearse, and we drove it up there, and we were driving it back. And on 95, there was like a big stick, and I guess it hit underneath my car, and I'm merging, and I had to jam on the brakes. And all of a sudden I hear a pop, and I'm like, what was that? So I'm 65 miles an hour, and I'm trying to slow down, and my brake is just going all the way to the floor. And it has a bench seat, so she's asleep next to me. And I'm like, and I didn't want to wake her up, and she finally wakes up, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to alarm you, but we don't have any brakes. And she was like, why are you speeding up? And I was like, I didn't want to panic. So we're just like, I was so lucky. The breakdown lane, I had to, luckily that vehicle had third, second, and low gear. So I had to push it into, it was like on the, like 3 on the tree almost. And I had to get it to slow down, and I tried fixing the brake line on the side of the road, and I was having no luck. That was a wild night. We had to go take a subway from New York City. We were right on the border of New York and Jersey, and we were like, we could see the city. So we took a taxi. It was like a $70 taxi ride or some shit, because I didn't even know about Uber like at the time or something. And so we got into the city. I'm covered in grease. I go up to this cop, because I don't know how the subway system works. I'm just like walking around. It's like 2 a.m. And I go up to this cop, and I'm like, hey, and I was just like, can you tell me where a subway is? Like, and he's just like, why are you all covered in grease? And I was just like, and I had told him right before that, I said, hey, my car broke down. Can you show me like where a subway is? He goes, why are you all covered in grease? And I was just like, I just told you my car broke down. I was trying to fix it. He goes, is this a fucking prank or something? And I was like, no, why would I prank you? And finally this female cop was like, hey, it's right down there. And we go down there. I buy us these like way overpriced tickets to take the train back to Wilmington. I have to get the car towed. Anyway, while we're on the train, there's this bum just jerking off in his sweatpants. And I was, of course, recording him on my phone.
I remember seeing that guy covered in grease.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I was wondering why you were staring at me.
Yeah. Anyway, I've always been big into the paranormal, and I've always wanted to write ghost stories, and I always told ghost stories growing up to my friends, and God, I love it. I love sitting around a campfire and just telling old legends and ghost stories, and
it's fun.
Yeah, it is. It's the best. It's what makes, I don't know, it builds the imagination and carries on tradition, and it's just cool. I mean, storytelling is everything now. Look at Netflix. Yeah. Like everything is storytelling now. Yeah. That's all people care about.
Yeah. So is Sons of Poseidon your only pirate/ghost story, or do you have far more, I'm guessing, in that genre?
No, that's my only one. I've written a ton of stories. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night. I usually keep a notepad next to me, and I'll write a whole story, and then I'll go back to sleep. And you know, I'm sure you do that too, Mike. Because
still do it, even though I haven't written anything in years. I still write down ideas constantly.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, it's the same with songs. You know, it's like I have a song From a Whisper to a Scream. I wrote it for Cough and Fly, but I perform it, you know, wherever I go. And I wrote that song about, and that's kind of a ghost story, but it's a story about a murder. So I like writing songs that tell story. Yeah, I guess fucking everybody does, right? But I really like connecting with people on a personal level, I guess I could say, and storytelling when you're sitting there with people or standing there with people, even if there's a guitar in my hand or not. You know, I like being there with people and telling stories and then having them add shit on. When we had gotten back from deployment, we were at Fort Hood for like a week, and everybody's bored. Internet is, you know, shitty, and just everybody's just trying to figure out what to do. And I said, yo, let's play one word story. And everybody's like, what the hell is that? And I was like, and I'm like a theater nerd, so I'm like, well, let me tell you. It is where we sit in a circle, and we're all in like bunk beds, you know, 100 of us stashed in a fucking room. And there's like, and we're all in bunk beds, and I'm like, you know, I say once, and then the next person might say upon, and then the next person a time or whatever. And we try to tell a story using one word. And I think that is extremely important for just humanity. But yeah, that's my only ghost pirate story. I don't know. There's a lot of ghost pirate stories in general.
When you mentioned the thing about the one word story, that reminded me, Pat, Mike, do you guys remember back when I lived in a townhouse, and we used to do that where you would write part of a story and fold the paper, and then the next person would,
yes,
they would just have the last line.
They would only see like the last line, and then they would continue it from that line, and then fold it over.
Cool, dude.
I do remember that. Yeah,
I found some of those recently when I was cleaning up, and I looked. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, it made no sense. I was like,
that's what makes it fun.
And then I remembered. I was like, "Oh, that's when we used to do that story thing." Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld had a great. Oh my God! You remember? You guys Seinfeld fans?
Yeah. Casual fan. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love He's my favorite comedian of all time. He had that great episode where like a shitty B movie was playing in the middle of the night. He woke up and wrote something down, and he was trying to figure out what it was the whole time. And it was funny because the movie was like a Plan 9 from Outer Space ripoff, and Larry David was actually in the movie on screen.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And he finally figures it out, and he goes, "That's not funny," you know, like in his fucking voice, like what is that? That's not funny. Yeah,
that's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One thing I like about pirate stories is it makes murder fun. So I feel like it's always some kind of caper or something. Someone's always murdering somebody or something. Like, yeah, good for you. And it's like, you know, it's fun. And also about this story, I like that a lot of pirate stories I know, there's always like supernatural elements kind of mentioned, but it's always kind of like it's almost like they're trying to spook each other out, or it's some legend or something. But it's never, I don't feel like ever it's never actually part of the story. So I thought that it was kind of cool where it was like a pirate story with like a Lovecraftian kind of vibe to it. Because that's when we first talked about it. That's what I thought. It's like, wow, because I thought, like, when we were originally talking about doing a movie, I was like, it's probably going to be a Lovecraft movie or something, because this has a total, like, unknown kind of Lovecraft vibe, so I thought that was cool. Also, the second time listening to it, I also got a bit of, like, I don't know, something about it just made me think of The Fog, too, like the guys in John Carpenter's
well, that's
The Fog.
funny you say that, because when I wrote it, I was listening to the soundtrack of The Fog over and over again. I love movie soundtracks.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Oh, awesome, dude. Yeah. Oh shit, I could go on all day. I listen to Godzilla soundtracks in my car all the time, and I'm like, what the fuck are people gonna think when they pull up next to me? Like Akira Ifukube, the guy who did all the music. I mean, it's usually very like military music. I don't know. I just love it. I love Godzilla.
Stuff's cool, man. It's cool. Movie soundtrack music's good to listen to while you're working too, because it's not distracting. It just kind of, you know, it's there. It's
yes. Have you guys seen The Invisible Man from 2020?
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't see that.
The
I wanted to
soundtrack to that is awesome. It's terrifying. I highly recommend.
Yeah, I don't recall the soundtrack for some reason, which is
and see that was the first thing I noticed in the film was the music, and I was like, oh my god, I have to get that soundtrack. It's like they mixed. Are you guys like synthwave fans at all?
I like synthwave,
like cyberpunk music, kind of
dark wave.
Yeah, I love all that stuff. I just think that's the new punk rock in my opinion, because you know people, you know, really took to it and they can make it themselves, and that is so cool. You know, I love making it on my iPad. But it's like they mix traditional, like almost like I want to say almost like John Williams style with synth wave.
Okay.
Not as much John Carpenter as you'd think, but more along the lines of like very dramatic music. I don't know. It's really creepy, and it reminds me of like H.R. Geiger or Giger, however you say his name. It just like it feels like that cyberpunk, you know, vibe, and it's really spooky. And I listen to that a lot too when I write.
All right, so any final thoughts before we roll into ratings here? Let's rate 1950 Treasure Island. Nobody has anything?
Not all at once.
All right, no, that's good. That's what I was waiting for. All right, so I guess what we'll do is, so typically whoever picks the film, Matt, will pick the order in which we rate. I'm not quite sure how to do this one, because even though it's officially my selection, it was inspired by your story for me to even pick it. So here's what I'll do then. I will go first.
Okay.
Matt, you can go last, only because so you can kind of see the you know, the groove of what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah, well, bookend it.
Cool. Yeah, I guess, you know, after I go, Mike, and then Justin, and then Matt. All right?
Okay.
Perfect.
So the way I have worked, and I think a lot of us, we've kind of been programmed. I mean, we touched on it earlier in the show. We've been kind of programmed with like modern day movie making and modern day acting. And then when you watch the old school stuff, a lot of it, you have to break through that first layer to even like get the context and, you know, really dig in, because a lot of it seems goofy at face value, the way that they're overacting and, you know, even some of the sets, even though it's extremely impressive, like what they did with this film. I mean, they looked like legit full pirate ships built, as well as a lot of indoor studio sets, which are impressive as all hell, as well as like the matte paintings in the background.
I was just
and all
about to
this
say
stuff.
the matte paintings, yes.
Yeah, it really, really impressive stuff. So, but this is an odd one because I think a typical viewer watching this film in these days wouldn't really look at the details of the film. They would kind of just take it at, you know, the total package, and they'd probably be turned off by a lot of what they're seeing. And that's the thing too, when taken out of context, when you see the way that Robert Newton is portraying his character and that pirate voice, those of us today that don't understand his impact could look at that film and be like, oh man, he is totally overacting that pirate, not realizing he's the one that created it. Like it was, you know, he's the one that changed the game. So the only reason I'm saying all of this is because if I were to have watched this film at face value without really breaking it down and studying it and trying to peek behind the curtain, I would have rated it lower on the scale.
Okay.
But because I understand the impact that this has had on pop culture, even to today. I mean, we talked about earlier in the show, before you were on, Matt, we talked about, what was it, Mike? International Talk Like a Pirate Day?
Yeah.
That stuff is still around now.
September 13th, is that what you said?
19th, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the 19th. The fact that this film, even today, resonates, and I know it's part of a bigger picture, but this one, I think specifically, because of the performance of Robert Newton, has really changed the game and has lasting ripple effects. So based on that alone, I have to rate it certainly a little higher on the scale than I would have otherwise. So I'm going to give it a solid 7 from me. It's on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. Sure. But I feel comfortable with the 7. I have a lot of respect for what they were able to accomplish. And I know they were working with a Disney budget. Even back then, I'm sure it may have been peanuts for what they have these days, but I'm sure they were still working with a shit ton of money compared to a lot of studios.
Oh, yeah.
But what they were able to accomplish is impressive, and I think that has to be taken into account. So I'm going to stick with the 7. So, Mike, what are your thoughts?
A lot of what you said, Pat, kind of holds true for me as well. Like, learning as much as we did about this film after having seen it, you know, I knew nothing going in. Nothing at all other than it's a Disney movie. I've never read the book. I never saw any other adaptation of this or anything. I just knew it was about pirates and it was Disney. That's literally all I knew. So going into it that way and then watching the film and then later doing the research and finding out all the stuff about the actors, the director, all the ins and outs of it, man, it just brought it to another level, knowing all that stuff. I wish I had seen this as a kid. I probably would have, you know, it probably would have been like a 9 or a 10, you know? Yeah. Just because if I had grown up with it, you know, that would have been a whole other thing. But yeah. Pat, I'm pretty close to your rating. I might go a little lower. I think I'm gonna go like a 6.8.
All right, cool. Justin?
Yeah, I don't know. So with keeping in tradition, I'm horrible at ratings, and I'll just probably throw a random number out. But I'm just gonna go higher because that's what I do. But I'm gonna go 7.2. Cool. And you guys already said most of this stuff I liked. I think that 0.2 is for the violence. I like the violence in it.
Oh, nice. Matt, the floor is yours.
So I like old movies a lot. I love matte paintings. To me, when you see things that are physically on the screen, that has more of an emotional impact on me. I really don't like CGI. I don't really like the way... I can't stand movies like Fast and the Furious and that type of acting style or like The Rock is in like everything. You know, that's just not for me. I love, you know, the new Godzilla movies, they're fine, but to me the old ones are better because there is something physically on the screen, whether you think buildings are cheesy or not. It's still two guys in monster suits kicking the shit out of each other.
Totally agree.
And yeah, it's just more appealing to the eye, in my opinion. So when I watch this movie, I mean, I go at least 9.5 out of 10 because you're not only getting. The only reason I wouldn't give it a perfect 10 is that, you know, they leave out things from the book, which I guess Disney kind of has to appease the audience of the time. And they do leave out some of the violence, but they put in a good amount. But to me, when I see that they built, like you were saying, they built these ships and they painted these sets, and these were real guys sword fighting and climbing ropes, and I just think it's cool, man. Yeah. So to me, it's a beautiful film. I think they did a great job. It's a little short, which I guess some people might, you know, think that's better or whatever. But I like a very, you know, I get sucked in. So to me, I go about a 9 to a 9.5.
It's probably the most rational rating we've ever had on here. So that's
that
makes sense.
We got a 7.6
average.
7.6 average. Yeah.
Hey, that's fantastic.
So looking at IMDb, they have a 6.9. So we're above the IMDb consensus. So for what that's worth.
Okay.
So with that, I guess. Unless anybody has any last-second things that they want to get off their chest before we close it down, I think we've pretty much nailed everything we set out to do.
I just wanted to say thanks for having me on. This is cool. I never did this before, so this is awesome.
Dude, absolutely. Thanks for coming on. It was great. Yeah, it was awesome. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, man.
So Sarah, Justin's wife, who's a super fan of the show, she was our first guest on a previous episode, which was awesome.
Very cool.
Although, now that I'm thinking about it, some nepotism may have been involved in that situation. But that's no knock on Sarah. She'll always hold the title.
Yeah.
So I would say that for the record, you're probably the first, like, outside the box guest that we've had. Yeah. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait till we cross paths again for sure. And hopefully the Guild listeners out there can now tap into some of your work and get exposed to, take that how you will, be exposed to some of your what you have to bring to the table, which has been really awesome. And like I said, I'm going to play that song Beneath Your Eyes at the end of this episode here because it's fucking killer.
That's actually that song is about the original Invisible Band.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's great, dude.
Thanks.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, Fatt Monster Matt, thank you so much. Seriously, it's meant a lot to us, and we appreciate your time, and this has been so much fucking fun.
Yeah, you guys, this has been awesome.
So to anyone listening out there, obviously continue to check us out on our social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Discord. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and did I miss anything, Justin?
And also,
I feel like I missed something.
Matt, can you tell everybody your bands and where to find their music and everything? And if you want to pimp your streaming channel for your video games too?
No, I'd love to. So let's see. My streaming channel, that's easy. It's Twitch, and it's punk_rock_plastics, but it's spelled PLASTIXXX. So Punk Rock Plastics. And my bands are Twitching Witches and Fatt Monster Matt. So Fatt with 2 T's, Monster, and then Matt. And those are all on Spotify and iTunes and Apple Music and Pandora and everything. So
nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Right.
Thank you.
I will be checking them out myself.
I very much appreciate that.
For real. I'm definitely going to.
While we're pimping stuff, I did find a Quick Bite of Flesh, an anthology of zombie flash fiction, is on Amazon.
Is it still on there?
For $13 if anyone's interested. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can get it for $0 and worth every penny.
Oh,
from what I heard.
Yours is all zombie?
That's an anthology. I had a zombie story in that anthology. Yeah.
That is cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the one I own. I think it was pretty good.
Mike gets 0.02% of that $0, so just know that you're spending your money wisely. All right, Matt, thank you so much. Mike, Justin, always a pleasure as usual. Thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you all next time on the MacGuffin Guild.
Thanks again,
right.
you guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm going to see you
Later.
Peace.
I raised you better than this.
Yo ho ho to all our fellow MacGuffins out there. This is Pat. First and foremost, thanks for listening. There would be no guild without you, so thank you. Secondly, on behalf of the entire MacGuffin Guild, I want to personally thank Fatt Matt not only for joining us on this adventure, but also for his sacrifice and the sacrifice and dedication of all the men and women of our military, for being our protectors and giving up so much of themselves for us. Thank you, Matt. Now, as promised, here is my personal favorite Fat Monster Matt tune entitled Beneath Your Eyes. Enjoy it, then go buy it. We'll see you all next time on the Guild.
I never saw you